Hi everyone, welcome back to Gen Z Guidebook. Today here we are with Miss Kavya. Digital storytelling. That's a new word that it's not that famous. Could you elaborate about it?
You mentioned that storytelling is a new word. It actually isn't, which is a really big part of how I usually start when I speak to students. We have been storytelling for millennia. In fact, before we even had a means to read and write, humankind started by telling stories. The first sort of thing, if you look at hieroglyphics and things like that, what they are simple stories with a beginning, middle, and end. And then that sort of connected civilizations throughout time. When you say digital storytelling, it is simply talking about the medium through which stories are now being told. We are entering and we're seeing the growth of a digital economy before our eyes, unprecedented growth of digital content. And this content is, in a way, storytelling in itself. Right? Whether you're telling your story, whether you're telling your brand story, whether you're telling the story of other people or fictional stories, and if you're doing it through digital mediums, through streaming, through the internet, through social media, even for that matter, digital film and photography, that is the medium through which your story is being told, and that is digital storytelling. It is very complex in the sense that there's a lot of ways you can do it and participate in it. But it's also so simple in the sense that we've been storytelling our whole lives. The first thing you think of when you think of a child is, bedtime stories. And it's something that's so deeply ingrained in who we are as individuals, as human beings, as a civilization, that it comes actually very naturally to us. I think storytelling is actually genetically encoded in people.
What was that one thing that drew you towards storytelling and to pursue a career in that?
I think the biggest thing that was for me, my love for, this may seem very obvious, but stories, right? Growing up, I remember I used to read I used to read books all through the night. I wouldn't sleep. I just sit up. And I remember this one birthday, I didn't ask for anything. I asked my mom, can we please get a light above my bed that I can switch on and off so that I can turn it on in the middle of it. But that sort of, you take that love for stories and then it turned into a curiosity for, okay, these are stories in books, but what about the stories that people can tell me? Really inspired by this one pivotal trip or experience I had. I think I was around 17. I was working with an organization I currently still am, called the Gift of Life Adventure Foundation, and it was started by my father, and we drove from India to the UK. So it was a 2-month drive. My role was to write blogs. And you'd think my blogs would be about the place and this and that. And yes, it was when you're telling stories about travel. But what intrigued me the most was the stories of the people I met, the stories they would tell me. And that sort of piqued my interest in, in more human interest stories. Right? Like, where are you coming from? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you the way you are? And so then I realized that everybody has a story. Some of these stories get highlighted, some of them don't, but that doesn't mean that they don't hold value, right? I think that sort of ignited my passion for storytelling. And then I've done that sort of throughout. I worked with another nonprofit, and my entire impact there was to make sure that when they are communicating data to their stakeholders and showing impact, I was like, yeah, the numbers are fun, but what about the stories? Isn't it so much cooler to say we impacted X lives and here's a story from one of those people? Right? It's more impactful to actually share how you've touched someone's life as opposed to just talk about how many lives you've touched.
So as you shared your story that you asked your mom for a light. So the thing is, of course, that you asked because you're an avid reader. I'm very sure you read a lot. So on a daily basis or on a monthly basis, how many books do you finish off?
I stopped reading. So funnily enough, I wouldn't say diminished, but the way I consume stories changed. And that's where digital storytelling comes in, and that's why my role currently in Sochcast is also about still consuming those stories. It's just the medium is different, right? Now we encourage women to tell their stories through audio. I'm also interested in looking at real human stories through video, right? That's a really engaging medium as well. So I think books were a gateway, like a pathway to exactly, it's where it started, and that's where also the digital part comes in, because as technology has evolved, features of social media that support storytelling in different forms has also made it more accessible to all kinds of people to tell their stories. So it's not like I stopped listening to stories or learning about people, right? I'd still watch TED Talks, I still listen to podcasts, I still read a book now and then. But yeah, it's really about the diversity in the mediums that are now available, and how do you leverage them to best tell your story. Maybe all mediums are not for you. Everybody wasn't born to write a book. But that, again, does not mean that the story is not valid and that it's not valuable, and that, it doesn't mean you can't help somebody else or inspire somebody else or educate someone else, or even entertain someone else for that matter.
The next thing is, as a digital storyteller, like you pursued a career in that. Could you tell the students who would be watching this, or the audience who's going to watch this, the beauty of the career that you're following right now?
When it comes to your career, 100% you need to follow your gut to begin with. That's a starting point. And obviously we don't live in La La Land. There are a lot of practical things that go into that. But I actually was lucky enough to come from a family of journalists and people in media, so I didn't have that much pushback, fortunately. What I will say, however, is that you need to have a plan, right? When you're trying to fight for something that your parents may not agree to, and I'll give you an example to this. I did not go to 12th. I didn't go to 12th grade. I finished 11th grade, and I told my parents one day, I said, Mom, Dad, y'all are spending a lot of money on my education. I'm really grateful for it, but I don't want to go to school next year. I think I'm wasting my time, and I think you're wasting your money. I think I can sit at home, learn all of this myself, go give the exam, call it a day, finish early. I don't want to waste my time. It wouldn't have worked out if I didn't have a plan, which I did. Right? I said, here's my plan, here's the outcome, expected outcome, here's how I'm going to achieve the expected outcome. And that same thing holds true for any career or any decision that you're looking to make that is not conventional and requires some amount of negotiating and convincing and persuading. I would definitely say go with a plan, right? Know what your options are. Explore. Because you can't just say, I want a career in marketing or media, right? You have to be more informed about where you're headed, right? Do you want to go into film? Do you want to go into marketing? Do you want to work at an agency? Do you want to start your own agency? There are so many avenues that one can take. So do your research. And there's no excuse for not doing it anymore, because literally all the information you could possibly need is available at your fingertips. You just need to seek it. You can hit people up on, LinkedIn. You can DM them, speak, to find a network, right? Comment on people's posts, asking them questions. You can do a little exploring of your own. There's so many videos out there about careers and how, different careers can lead to different paths. So really being well informed is the biggest strength that you need to have behind you before you go and say, hey, Mom and Dad, I want to do this thing. You might not agree with it, but I trust my gut and I have facts to back me up. And here are the facts. Talk. And that's the best, because that's what I did, right? That's what I did. It was a little crazy, and my parents were initially like, you must be out of your mind. But then when I went to them with the facts, they were like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then when I followed through with the plan, and when they see you following through with your plan, I mean, the sky's your limit. You can just do whatever it is that you set your mind out to do. But they're also going to be worried because they are your parents. They're not trying to hold you back. They just want to make sure that you know what you're doing, and there's some sort of logic and reasoning behind the decisions you're taking.
Stay tuned, guys, for more such stories.